afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us live here at the BC Wildlife Park for an encounter with our American Badger, Bloom. I'm Danielle, one of the zookeepers here at the park. With me today is Julie behind the camera, and over here we have Bloom. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what it's like to be Bloom's keeper. We're going to try to do a little training session. We're going to give her some enrichment. We're going to put her food throughout the enclosure, and hopefully we're going to get a chance to look down one of her burrows. Now keep in mind, at any point Julie and I may have to leave the enclosure quickly. We never know what kind of behavior we're going to get out of our badger, so we want to always be on the safe side. Even though she's been with us since she was a tiny little kit, she's always a wild animal first, and we want to keep that in mind as we enter the enclosure. So this is the food we're going to be putting out for her today. She is a carnivore, so we have various types of meat in here, and you might notice the blueberries at the bottom. That's a little special treat. In the wild, badgers eat other burrowing mammals, so things like pocket gophers, ground squirrels, and marmots. So we do want to give her a nice variety of meats here, and then sometimes they do eat as well vegetation, rattlesnakes, and insects. So giving her a nice little variety is the best thing to do. So we're going to enter into the enclosure now. So we'll be going into what's called the double entry. So this is to make sure that once we enter, we're able to close the door behind us before we open the next one. And we have the badger waiting right down here. Oh, she's heading straight for the door. So I'm going to ask her to come on back. Badge, come on over here. Bloom. Let's go, good girl. So this is just a bit of a distraction so that she stays over here and allows us to walk through the doorway without her trying to brush past us. So now we can head into the main enclosure. We're going to be taking with us her target pole, her crate, and her big jug of water. And she is still safely over there in the corner having a little munch. That'll give us lots of time to go over. We want to make sure we close the door securely behind us. And now we're going to be heading over here to our training area. There's a station over here, and anyone who had tuned in to watch the wolves will have noticed that they had stations that were on the fence side. The badgers is over here, nice and close to where people can see her if they come to our encounters at the wildlife park. We're about to try a training session here, and she's already eager to do her first behavior. I taught her to open the crate door and go inside, and she did that for us without even being asked. There we go. She does get a reward for coming in. And then I'm going to ask her to close it. That was a bit of a cheat, as it was mostly already closed, but I'm going to give her a little reward for that. She kind of jumped the gun there and got herself into the crate before I was even prepared for her to ask her to do that. So now the tough part could be getting her to come on out. She really does enjoy being in there, so I'm going to use the target pole. So what I'm going to ask her to do is touch the target with her nose, and she gets a reward for doing that. That's a good girl. Now let's see if we can actually ask her into the crate. Put your nose there. Okay, open. Good girl. And she'll help herself right into the crate. Little reward down here. And then I always want to be careful about how I close the crate as well. I don't want to catch her tail in it or try to push her in. If she chooses not to go all the way to the end, then that's just fine. But you can imagine how important it is that we train our animals here at the park. If we ever had an emergency like a flood or a fire, we're going to need to move those animals out pretty quickly. So if we have an animal that's very happy to go into the enclosure, or sorry, into the crate, okay, close, close, half attempt, oh, and out she comes. So I didn't reward her at that point because she didn't do the behavior that I asked. She's sort of looking around, so let's do something that she can do. Let's get her to touch the target. Good girl. Okay, so now I'm going to move the crate off of the training station. I've got some extra food here, so I'm going to move over and put it on the little stump here. So that's for later, just in case we need it as an emergency exit. Bloom, there you go. Why don't you come on back out? Target. That's my thumb. Target. Good girl. There you go. So I'm going to close this up because she'll keep trying to go back in the crate. It's one of the easiest things for her to do. So she knows if she goes in there, she's going to get a reward. So she continually tries to go in. So we'll kind of set it up over there. Now the next thing I want to ask her to do is just to come onto her station, and you can see she's trying very hard to go back in. Good girl. Another little reward for that. We've also taught her to present her paws so that we could potentially do some dremeling. So you can see how long her claws are. She does a lot of digging, so we wouldn't have to necessarily give her a trim up now, but in the future, if it were necessary, we'd like to be able to try. What are you doing? Come on back down here. Good girl. Okay, we'll put that up on there. And you're just gonna put it there. You touch. Up. Thank you. Good girl. Now I'm going to ask her for the other one. She usually tries to give me the same one again. Paw. A little chew on my hand. Paw. Okay, she hears somebody going by in the background. So what we're going to do is ask her for something that she can do again, just to get her back in focus. Oh, off she runs. Okay, so you can see there she was hearing a little noise just off in the distance. So she was looking to decide whether she was going to head down one of her burrows. So now we're getting a little rubbing. They do have scent glands. Target. Good girl. There you go. All right, so one of the things we can use the target for too is to move the animal around the enclosure. So we'll see if we can get her to come on over here, just to give you an idea of how this works. Target badge.
So Danielle, how old is Bloom and how long has she been at the wildlife park?
Bloom is 14 years old and she's been here for the majority of her life. She came in through our rehab hospital as just a tiny little kit that was still being bottle fed. She did come from the Kootenays. Come on over here. And it was deemed that she'd be better off staying here with us than try to release her as she was such a young kid. Up. There we go. So we'll give her a little roll over and we can check her belly. So one of the other things we want to do with the animals here, we want to be able to check them over thoroughly. So I can run my hands down over Badger's body and be able to check on anything that might be a little unusual with her. You can see she's getting a little excited there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to skip ahead and we're going to start putting some of the food around. When she gets into that type of a behavior, it is possible that she's going to start taking a little too much interest in what we're doing. So we want to distract her with a bit of food so that we're able to stay in here and move around the enclosure. Okay, so what we have here is a little bit of enrichment. So there is a food item inside these little paper tubes. And then what we're going to do is head over to where her den sites are. Some of the older ones there can be used to drop these down into, collapse the dirt on top of it, and then she's going to have to dig the food up. So in the wild, they do go after burrowing mammals. So we want her to have to do the same type of thing while she's here at the wildlife park. So let's head over here and we'll see if we can find a nice old burrow that's not something she's using right now, and that we want to be able to look into one of them as well. So we don't want to collapse. Oh, that looks like a good one. So I'm going to use this here. I'm going to drop it down into there, and then I can kick all the dirt over on top of it. Now, she's such a fast digger. Badgers are known as the fastest digging animal on the planet, and they can dig so fast they can make a hole big enough to get their body into within seconds. So if I use an old burrow, it only takes me a little while to actually get it buried and have it nice and solid. because she can dig it up so quickly that if I went to the trouble to get a shovel and actually dig a hole, I put in way more effort than she's actually going to be putting in to go get it. So let's see if she comes over here and wants to try to dig that up. If she doesn't do it right now, then she'll definitely do it a little bit later on. She knows too that I've got the nice food right here in the bowl, so she may be a little more interested in this than going to work over here.
Do each of the animals that go through the target training have their own poles so they aren't distracted from the smells of other animals?
Yes, they definitely do. A lot of the equipment that we have remains at an enclosure. Lots of the reason for that. That's one very good point, but we also don't want any sort of cross-contamination, so we try to keep everything separate. All right, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of the food around too. So we want to try and hide it as much as possible. We want her to have to work for a living. So badgers in the wild, going to do a lot of digging, of course, as I mentioned. So we want to try to make her do that as much as possible. So what I like to do is have some rock areas preset so we can put the food into there. Now you'll notice Julie's boot there. We did ask her to wear boots to this encounter because it is possible that Bloom's going to want to grab hold of her ankle. So we have to have some protection there to make sure she's going to be okay if that does happen. Hopefully we get the signal beforehand and exit before any of that could happen. She's at another little enrichment item right there. So we can put food inside and then she tries to get it out. So you know what, I'll put her mouse in there and see if we get anything out of her there. We've had a few comments recently on Bloom's body condition. You'll notice she has a lot of loose skin on the side. Badgers do have very loose skin, so that if they're grabbed by a predator, they have a chance to be able to turn around a little and be able to get a good defense mounted against the predator. She handled that quite nicely. Now the claws, you might be able to get a very good idea of what the claws are like as she's eating there. So they are designed for digging. They're not super sharp like a cat's claw. They're excellent for digging, and the whole paw is sort of like the scoop of a backhoe. So the claws would be similar to the teeth, and then her paw would be more like the bucket of the backhoe. So what they do is grab a great big scoop of dirt, and they're able to either shoot it out to the side or between their legs, and then they're able to create these burrows very, very quickly. And within a territory, they're going to have several of them, especially if it's a female with kits. She may want to be able to move those kits from area to area to be safe. Okay, so we want to distract her from the boots. Here, Badge, have a look at that. And then, Julie, if you want to slowly back up out of the way. She might still decide that you're a little more interested. Yeah, okay. Let's go. Okay, so Julie, you want to head over to the doorway, and we'll just keep her going over here. You can head directly over to the door, and I'll come along with you. Now, there we go. It's a good idea that you put those boots on. Okay, so we can carry on. If there's any more questions, we can definitely talk about badgers a little bit more. There's lots to say about them. The most important thing is that they are on the endangered species list here in British Columbia. Now, part of the reason for that is habitat loss. Also, they get struck by cars very often. Big part of the issue is human activity. So they are a grasslands animal, and we do find them also in dry forest areas. But grasslands are quite usable, and it is one of those areas that people want to use for agricultural purposes, of course, and housing developments and that sort of thing. So unfortunately, what that means for the badger is that they can be pushed out of these areas. So we think there's possibly less than 350 badgers in the whole province of British Columbia. So conservation efforts are underway. What we're trying to do is have connecting areas from one population of badgers to the next, so that they have a way to be able to travel between the areas that they exist in, so that we have a better gene pool. One of the areas they're working on right now is the South Okanagan, and trying to get connecting lands into Washington State, where there's a bigger population of badgers. All right, so she's doing some nice little rubbing over there. And it looks like we might be safe for the moment. So we can move our equipment more close to the door so that we can make an exit if she decides that she's coming over this way.
Danielle, how many babies do they have each year?
They have between 1 and 5. Most commonly in British Columbia, it's closer to about 2, just slightly under 2 as the average. Oh, I have got, as we were talking about before, lots of comments about her weight. She is a rather large female badger. So typically you see them getting up to about 9 kilograms, where she happens to be a robust 12. She will lose weight in the summer months, and as we get into their breeding season, which is July or August, she does lose quite a bit of weight. So the fact that she's a little on the heavier side is okay with us, as she does have to get through the winter. And on top of that, she is an older badger. So as a 14-year-old, she is on the sort of high end of their lifespan. So in the wild, if they reach between 6 and 10, that's really good. And there have been badgers that have reached as much as 14 years old in the wild. So we're right at about the top end of wild longevity. I just put that little stump in there a couple days back, so every day I've come in and she's knocked it over and dug it back up. So today was the first day that it actually stayed upright.
Since they're endangered, has Bloom been a part of a mating program to get the numbers up?
Not so much a mating program. What they require first and foremost is the area for badgers to be in. They need more habitat. So if we had produced more badgers, there's still really nowhere to put them. So they're sort of at maximum capacity for the amount of land available to them. So before we could even think of a badger breeding program, what we'd need to do is secure more land for badgers in British Columbia. Now, she has been part of other programs. We've worked with the university using our badger as a sort of guinea pig, if you will, to try a few different experiments to see if we can help badgers in the wild. One of them was outfitting her with a GPS tracking system, a fake one, and a harness. And when we got the harness that we thought would fit best, we tried it on her, made a few adjustments, and then after she was able to wear it around in the enclosure for the full day, they took that design and put it on wild badgers so they could do tracking with them. So the idea was to find out where badgers cross the highway most commonly so that they might be able to put in underpasses so the badgers can go underneath the roadway rather than over top.
And last question here, I may have missed it, but what is the best way to help with conservation of this endangered species?
Definitely habitat is the big one. So Badgers in BC is a great place to start. It's we have the link for the website right there, and what they want from us is to try to find out if you have seen a badger, where you've seen them, and you can report that directly on their website. And aside from that, looking at habitat loss is the biggest thing. So if we can try to put more of our grasslands areas into provincial and national parks and refuges, that may help badgers in the long run.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Danielle. And if anyone has any requests for future Zookeeper live feed talks, please let us know in the comments below, and we will try and feature one for you. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody.